I've been teaching the district for over a decade, and at SLO High, I used to teach Hamlet every year. I used to take my classes to Shakespearean plays, and there are Hamlet paintings around the classroom and a couple of skulls that I tell them are related to Hamlet all over my classroom. And years ago, I told the AP class that they couldn't pass the class until they had mastered Hamlet, until the principal called me in and said I really couldn't make them read the whole play. And he wasn't alone. A keynote speaker at a recent reading conference told me to ditch literature, and a consultant at the district told me that teaching literature is a very small part of my job as an English teacher. And a local administrator told me that the story isn't ultimately important. So the students don't know Hamlet. Most adults don't. And I think the administrator spoke for all of them when he continued. On the other hand, we could be learning about reading and writing to prepare them for the working world. To put it simply, the Common Core culture insists that I focus on teaching the communication skills necessary to excel in college and the workplace, sometimes at the expense of the content of the classics. Now, these aren't mutually exclusive goals, but as one educator put it, we're spending less time decoding language that is out of their grasp and more time working on skills within their grasp. And stories from pop culture are frequently more accessible, more engaging, and more relevant to their daily lives. Meanwhile, I'd started listening to a podcast called Serial, mostly because my wife asked me to. The podcast is like a radio show on the internet that you can listen to at any time, and Serial featured 12 totally engaging episodes about a real-life murder of a high school girl in Baltimore who was strangled to death by somebody's bare hands, and the possibly wrongful imprisonment of her ex-boyfriend. In addition to the classic narrator, it included extensive interviews and video clips of the ex-boyfriend, detectives, lawyers, relatives, friends, expert psychologists, and some blatantly unreliable witnesses. My wife wanted me to listen to it so she could talk with me about it. Soon my students were listening to Serial because I asked them to, because I wanted to talk with them about it. And the students loved it. They listened intently. It was a masterfully told story. It was literally contemporary. The final episode came out on the day of our final, and they felt like they had a chance to solve the crime, and their teacher didn't know how the story ended, so it was really exciting for them. Afterwards, 83% of them said they preferred the podcast to novels or poetry or anything else, and I noticed they never spaced out at any of the episodes. They would sometimes actually tell me to rewind it to listen to that part again. They could read articles about it and tell their parents about it and their friends about it in a way that they frankly couldn't with Hamlet. And my administration also liked it. They liked the student engagement, the use of technology, and the focus on the standards. There was a slight issue of bad language and a teenage murder. So when the assistant principal, a notoriously straight-laced disciplinarian, came up to me and pulled me aside in the hallway, I was like, here we go. And he's like, Michael, seriously, who do you think did it? And I was like, I don't think it could have been Adnan, and Jay is pretty sketchy. And so he even came into class and told the kids about life in the dean's office and detecting liars and interrogating suspects, how he can tell who's lying. My two big takeaways. One, technology enabled us to engage in the story that we couldn't with Hamlet. Not only could we listen to the podcast for free, but we looked at some of the direct evidence, including a map of the crime scene and actual handwritten letters. And when the narrator explained the complicated route that the suspects allegedly took, we used Google Street View and virtually drove through traffic with them, which was kind of creepy, but we did it on the big screen. And we collaborated with classes in 3 different states, and we Skyped with a news program in New York, and we were able to talk to the teacher from the high school where the crime actually took place. Now, don't get me wrong, when I advocate for technology, I'm not saying we should go out and buy every kid an iPad. Buying a ton of digital tools is not a panacea for modern education. Los Angeles Unified School District, for example, wasted like over $1 billion on iPads. That's not really helping their learning very much. But this experience with Serial was a refreshing example of how we can thoughtfully leverage technology in the classroom for maximum impact with just a little expense. And the other takeaway was not as many people were concerned I was, quote, ditching literature as I had hoped or expected. I wrote an article about replacing Shakespeare with Serial, and it was read by people across the nation, and I expected some backlash and got very little. One teacher said he was sad for Shakespeare, and another person called my article a brilliant satire of a gutless teacher who's given up. But it turns out the joke was on them because very few people read it as a satire. In fact, teachers, administrators, parents, almost everyone was excited about the possibilities of using today's stories to teach listening skills and told me it'd be great if teachers would stop teaching what somebody called the teacher's favorite book club. So here I am feeling like Polonius when he asked Hamlet, "What do you read, my lord, and what's the matter in it?" And in the meantime, season 2 of Serial starts this fall, and I'll have it on the syllabus right next to Shakespeare's sonnets, and I'll wait to see what the country, the state, and the local community has to say about the shift from classic stories to modern skills. And I'll continue to wonder if there's method in what some people call the Common Core madness, or if there's madness in too much method. Thanks for having me here.
Good job.